And hello everyone. Just figured we'd do another little informal hangout here. Just me and Jack. He's joining me because no one's around. Um, so what's been going on in the world your way, Jack? What's been going up?
Oh, I mean, not much. Well, I mean, I'm back in sort of Ireland now, personally, and that's been sort of, I know, it reminded me about quite a lot of factors as to why I dislike them. Just got out of a sort of like a 2 hour argument with some random alt-right Irish Republican, which has driven me up the wall.
Oh man, I don't want to start any bullshit, but do I know this person?
No, no, I doubt it.
No, no, no.
No, I'd never heard of them before.
Right. Oh dear. Well, it's like you seem to you've complained about the Irish before. I mean, I can't say too much because I have Irish um, subscribers and friends and so forth. Uh, but I have said it before. There's a reason the Irish were enslaved. It wasn't an accident. but, um, but
Yeah, well, it was because they insisted on remaining in like 5 or 6 different tiny petty kingdoms, and then so England, unified as one kingdom, could just sweep over them all without much bother.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that and
the
the fact that
Irish.
they're sort of factionalism. It wasn't just like a lot of the Irish make out to be. It wasn't just a case of hmm, how to put it. Oh, we are sort of like one sort of spiritual nation kingdom or whatever, but we divide into these little groups because we all want to be free. No, it was a lot more sort of anarchic than that. So when the English showed up and sort of colonized the region it's now about where Dublin is, they didn't even really have to conquer much of it themselves. They basically just handed some gold to one group of Irish and said, right, go and enslave that group of Irish for us, because they didn't really have much of a unity.
Mm. I feel like we should have an Irish person here, but no one's around. I think Gaelic near reactionary is, but I don't know if he wants to speak. Um, we'll see if he messages me on Skype saying "Oi cunt." Um, you know, we'll
It's
see what happens.
I've got license to talk shit about the Irish because I'm sort of like half like ethnic Irish myself. So I've got the license.
Ooh, I'm not sure we can be friends anymore, Jack. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Man, I'm fucking thinking about this. My cousin came over today. We planned this trip to London that we're gonna do. We have to leave at 8:30 in the morning, and we're getting back at like 4 in the morning the next day to do this trip to London and back, which is interesting. We worked out it wasn't expensive as we thought it'd be. If we was gonna get a train and then like a fucking hotel, it would have been like 150 quid. Instead, it's a coach, and we're staying up for 20 odd hours, so it's gonna be about 40 quid each. Which is a lot better than we thought it was going to be. Obviously that's not the main concern, but it's just we would like to be able to actually afford it. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean it's a good strategy, and I've done that myself. Well, traveling, you can get like I mean, as long as you plan it in advance, you can get like a 6, 7, 8 hour sort of a coach ride, sort of overnight for like a fifth or a sixth of what you'd get a hotel room for.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we've worked that out. It's going to be fine. Um, I did that little video earlier with a poll asking who actually knows that I'm doing this bullshit and who's actually going to be there. And I think so far it's about 10 people around that, which is good. I didn't want 100 fucking people saying they'd have to be there. Not only because that would be really overwhelming and I'm really introverted, but also because the venue that David and co um, they don't book the pub, but they organize a meetup in this pub. Just all of a sudden, like 100 millennials just waiting
Yeah,
outside the fucking door. Yeah, that would just fuck shit up. So if you have like
yeah.
10 people, go on.
Not to mention the fact that I mean, this Extremists Club. I mean, my sort of understanding of it that is very sort of diverse. It's got a
Mm.
lot of different voices in it. I think some of them might feel threatened if like 100 like assorted like far right types, fascists, sort of ultra traditionalists, just to show up.
Oh, I really hope that's the case. There'll be at least 15 of us. And like there will be like nationalists, like British nationalists there. So we'll scare them into submission. Is that one of the other talkers is like this anonymous libertarian type. I wonder if I don't know if I'll be speaking before or after him. If I'm speaking after, I'll be sure to mock him. Um, but we'll see what we'll see what happens. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll probably talk about becoming a reactionary in the modern world. How the fuck are you born into the world as it is to then feel yourself grating against it rather significantly? And then that seems like something I could talk about. I didn't want to do something too, talk about this particular historical event because it just seems rather external. It seems rather
Mm.
like it
Mm.
like, for me. Like that's why I try and keep things personal because it's the self as archetype, it's the self as conduit, um, and that's something I think which is valuable. Is interesting because it serves as kind of an object to study, in a way, and especially with this question, how does one become a reactionary? I can explain my how it happened to me, and obviously how it happened to others, and I can make loads of kind of ideological points and
Mm.
just rant a bit about why modernity is shit. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can
otherwise,
definitely see the value.
yeah. I mean, otherwise, if it's something else, I'm just going to be just here's some information. There you go. That you impressed. Like that just
Yeah.
seems kind of a waste of opportunity.
Yeah, that, and if you just jump into some like sort of explicit sort of like reactionary tradition, so like this is why sort of like the ideal of the Holy Roman Empire was great without much context or understanding of where you're coming from,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
they're just going to be a bit confused at the end.
Yeah, this is jihad, and this is why it matters. That would just, especially like I said this originally, like considering the audience, it's not going to be all hardline right wingers. So I can't give a lecture on Julius Evola. As much as I would like to, I can't do that just because I would have to explain too much, and I would have to just kind of it would be I'd be talking basically through some people because they wouldn't have a fucking clue what some of the presuppositions I have are, and I wouldn't have the time. It's only half an hour to explain um, every single way someone like Evola's thought diverges from the contemporary world. Like that's a huge topic, and there are myriad ways you could address it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because I mean, it took Bowden an hour to do sort of a basic introduction to Evola to a
mm,
group of far right people. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah. So I'm not going to try and. Alex has told me if I don't say at the end, thank you very much, like Bowden, he said he's going to beat me up. Uh, so he said he wasn't. He's not going to be there now, actually. So I don't have to fucking say it. He's not going to be there, but I'll try. Um, but yeah, there'll be like I think 10 people. Let me just check this straw poll again. Okay. So 7 people said yes, 6 said not sure, 50 odd people said no. So they're going to wait for it to be online. I will try and video it, like I've said, but I'll bring my camera or I'll borrow my mum's camera because my one has a memory card issue right now. Excuse me. So I'll figure that out and we'll see what happens. Um, I'm sure once I get into the room and I have a feel for it, um, it'll be fine. Uh,
yeah,
because
I'd
I've
like
given
to be.
speeches before and stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to be there myself, but I mean, just
Yeah,
circumstances being what they are, I don't think I could really manage it
yeah,
right
no,
now.
man, that's fine. Don't worry about it. That's why I'm gonna upload it as well. I mean, it's interesting. It's my first, as Ed told me. It's like my first entry into meat space, as it were. Which is not technically true. I've done like meetups, but yeah, that sort of thing. Um, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure once I get a feel for the room, I can dominate it properly. So there you go. So as I says, Adam is going to drop his spaghetti and start spurging. No, I won't. I won't. I can. I'm an introverted person. I'm not a sociable person, but I'm confident. Um, and I have a bit of a sadist in me to a degree. Again, like Bowden. Um, so we'll see what happens. I'm sure it'll be fine. Fuck it. I want it to be fine, and therefore it will be. Um, It's going through this comment section right now. Oh dear. Um, will Alberto be there? I hope so. I am taller than he is, and I will bully him. And I'll try and get on camera.
Did he not say he was too autistic to come?
He originally said over Skype that he said no because he would spurg out. But then he later said he's thinking about it. I don't know if he will. He is, to be honest, a high functioning autistic. Alberto, he goes to college, right? He has a girlfriend, all this shit, and yet like the shit posting is. It would be funny if it wasn't actually concerning. Like it didn't make me actually worry about his mental health to a degree. Like fucking, like it's not. It doesn't stop. It's just yeah, it's really concerning. So
Yeah.
you kind of have that. It's kind of a mix. So if he'll be there, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I've literally never. I literally have no idea about anything he believes because I've never seen him do anything but shitpost ever.
Yeah, it's difficult. I've had serious discussions with him, and he is he's a conservative English patriot. That's kind of vague, but he's kind of libertarian in some respects. He's kind of moderate in some respects. He's not as extreme as some people are. But yeah, the shit posting it makes him very difficult to pin down. And some people do this. I've noticed this. They just shit post to the point where everything is irony, and when you actually try and have an ordinary discussion, it's just impossible. In person, it'll be different. Because yeah, it'll be different physicality and so forth. Gaelic neo-reactionary tells me to channel the ghost of Bowden when I do my speech. I will try to. You can Musum says you've said you give a talk about yourself. What if nobody there cares about you? Well, they can fuck off. To be honest, and they can fight me if they don't want me to speak. Anyway, like I said earlier, I'm not going to be just talking about myself and my life. I'll use myself as an example to talk about a broader question, and go from that. I mean, yeah.
So, are you planning on sort of like sketching out notes or a script for that? Or are you just gonna sort of?
I'm just gonna ad lib it. There might be a couple of bullet points. So, for instance, there's a quote from David Parry's book. Fuck. It's a book about Mount Athos. But there's a quote from that book which I remember where he describes the modern, just a short paragraph. And I think I'll quote that because he'll be there, and it's kind of I'll have little bullet points like that. So if I'm rambling and I get lost, then I can kind of go back to that, and I'll have a rough idea in mind what I'll talk about. But generally, I won't have a script or anything, because I can speak quite well when I put my mind to it. These sorts of instances on YouTube and so forth don't really facilitate it. But if you're in a two-way conversation, for example, and I mean, I'm better at speaking than I used to be. Pardon me. I'm still doing the ums and ahs and that sort of thing, but consciously I can stop doing it right now. But I used to do it much more. And, well, one can train oneself out of bad habits and into others. For example, look back 2 years, or a year and a half ago, my speaking was far less concise and enunciated. And I've taught myself to speak more precisely because I have a bad habit of slurring, for example. Um, but there you go. So one can do these things. It's not difficult. Um, I don't think it's even possible to be right of Evola, says Amaze2341. Um, well, when you say things like that, you have to break down what you mean when you say right, because the very designation between left and right wing is actually a form of, or a symptom of degeneration. In traditional forms of government, they didn't exist. There wasn't a left or a right. Didn't that only come about because in English Parliament you had those who sat on the King's or Queen's left
It
and
was
right?
the French National Assembly
Oh, the French
in the
came.
Revolution. It was the right were those who opposed the revolution, and the left were those who supported it.
Mm, yeah. So it's a modern thing. Traditionally, in the Roman Empire, there wasn't a left or right, and that was not an accident. You might have some people who would oppose certain motions, but um, obviously those were what were destined to be worked out in the political system as it was. But that didn't mean they had this package of views and this package of views.
Mm.
But to be
Yeah, I mean,
more
they had.
right than Evola, I don't know.
Mm. I don't think I honestly think that Evil is a lot more. I mean, if you take sort of right wing in the sense that we might use it today, I think Evil was more right wing than most traditional societies.
Yeah, because he is. You see this because there haven't been very many traditional societies which have gone through with a kind of Evolian traditionalism as it stands to the letter for more than really moments. So in the Revolt Against the Modern World, he'll pick out bits and pieces from different mythologies and different points in time, and because these are glimpses through the clouds, so to speak. But there's never been a single society which totally and wholly embodied from its start to finish kind of Evolian traditionalism. It's kind of an ideal in that sense. Um,
Mm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
but this is
Yeah.
why
Man is imperfect; he can't realize perfection on Earth.
exactly, but that's also why it's important that these things are understood at the personal level, and don't just lie in the realm of hypothetical political scenarios and one's preferred form of government. It's not as simple as that, and
Yeah.
these
But I mean,
things
Evola
transcend that.
understood that himself well, quite well, given his support for Italian fascism and the Iron Garden. Like, he wasn't sort of rigid. No, we must have absolute full traditionalism right now.
Yeah, exactly. One has to be more realistic than that. But even then, like I said, these things do involve the person as well. They involve the self. They involve the individual. Oh, if the individual is of a particular type, of course. Not everyone can realize these things. But yeah, there are stepping stones, clearly. Fascism was a stepping stone. Potentially, it could have been. Same with National Socialism, which I finally actually got a PDF of his notes on the Third Reich. Oh, hold on a minute. Was it Fascism Viewed from the Right? I think it was both of them.
No, he
Um,
did two books. He did, I think it was National Socialism Viewed from the Right, and he also did another book called A Traditionalist Confronts Fascism.
yeah. A Traditionalist Confronts Fascism was an anthology of essays.
Yeah.
I have a copy of Notes on the Third Reich, which was originally its own kind of essay sort of thing, but he extended it and then shoved it on the back of Fascism Viewed from the Right, which is distinct from from the notes. And it became its own book. And Evola wrote so much. I think in his lifetime he wrote like over 1,000 articles. And his
Mm.
articles aren't just like 800 words; they're often like 4,000, more than that. So quite a lot of stuff.
Mm. Yeah, A
But
Traditionalist Confronts Fascism is one of his sort of better sort of anthologies, I think. I mean, I particularly liked the sort of interview he conducted with Codornu. I thought that was sort of very informative.
what was that? Sorry.
In Traditionalist Confront Fascism, one of the chapters is Evola's sort of description of his meeting and interviewing Cornelia Codina.
Oh, excellent. I know he met him and he held him in very high regard. What was you need do you have that as like a PDF?
I might somewhere around. I'll see if I can find it.
If you
Don't
can
have
find
it.
it, please send it to me. I'd be very interested in reading that.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's basically what you'd sort of expect. I mean, it basically says, this is basically probably the best sort of political movement in Europe for, the last 200 years.
yeah,
But there were still sort of some of the trappings and failings of fascism in it.
yeah. That's interesting. I'd be glad to read that. Um, I also want to read Codriano, of course. He's for my legionnaires, etc., or legionaries.
Mm.
Um, Amaze says, doesn't Evola admit himself as being right? Yeah, he does. Technically, he is right wing. He would fall under that paradigm. Within his paradigm, he would be on that side. But the very existence of the paradigm itself is a sign of degeneration. It shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be. It isn't a traditional system.
Mm.
It's a
Yeah.
modern invention.
Yeah, the fact that we need to, the fact that there is a movement reacting against sort of degeneration is pretty much all you need to say, because there wouldn't be a right if there wasn't any degeneracy
Exactly.
in our
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. Someone asked when this talk is. It's on the 29th, no, 26th, 26th of July, Tuesday, 49 Big Street in Soho, London, at the Old Coffee House, from 7 till 10. There you go. I've said it like more than once now. I have 2 videos on my NAM channel about this. Come on. Who needs fascism when you've got Douglas Carswell? Oh, base civic nationalist man. Oh dear. Anyway, how do we get on to talking about Evola? These things just happen. Um,
Talking about your speech, Bowden,
yeah,
Bowden
yeah. And I
talk,
said I wasn't.
Evola, Evola.
Yeah. Back to talking about this speech. It's interesting. I've been invited now to attend via all this stuff, the London Forum, um, as obviously an audience member. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think I'll involve myself with the London Forum. Honestly, same reasons as you wouldn't, Jack. I share
Mm.
your disagreements,
Distaste.
distaste. Yeah, that's more appropriate. Yeah, distaste for the London Forum. It's not my sort of thing. It's too. We won't get into that. We'll just make enemies. I can't do that. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. I've been asked, however, to perhaps try and start something in the southwest along the lines of a Wessex forum. I had this idea a few months ago, but it kind of dissipated because haven't been enough people down here in the southwest yet to really form something like that. And there's fucking no one edgy in Exeter. It's really weird. Um, it's a university city of 70,000 people. You'd expect not just to be myself and my brother. But there you go. The closest people who are kind of similar to my ways of thinking live in Taunton. I've met up with those guys. I met up with Trashman who lives in Dorset. Met up with other people, but not enough people to start something like that. So maybe that'll happen in time, but I need to meet more people and all that sort of thing. And my personality doesn't facilitate that over much. I'm not one for going out meeting, my fellow white revolutionaries. Uh, but we'll see. I think something will eventually happen, but I don't have it will not come through me per se. I just don't have the personality for that sort of thing.
Mm.
Um, Will you be talking about the Abo question at the Extremists Club? Of course. Um, isn't that the most pressing question of our age? The eternal Abo. No, maybe
Yeah,
one day.
yeah. I don't think anyone who isn't edgy would even understand why you were even vaguely talking about Aboriginals, because I mean they are pretty much just an alt-right meme at this point. I don't think anyone who isn't Australian other than us actually cares about them whatsoever.
It's just our little retarded social sphere. It all started. I can't. It must. I can't. The first instance of this, right, was me, Skeleton, and Morality Official having conversations on Skype. Me and Skeleton, we were joking one evening about Abo Hyde, going out Abo wrangling. It was so fucking funny at the time. It's still funny. And then we asked Morality Official, he's Australian, he can do like a really good Abo impression. So it just like we were talking and they're fucking hell, so funny. And then it just kind of spiraled out from there, and it's like infecting our little like edgy Anglo corner of the alt right. It's fucking hilarious. Ah, so good. It's still funny thinking about those conversations with our skeleton. It's so fucking funny. Some of these comments. Oh shit. It's midnight. I'm gonna be hysterical if I pay too much attention to this kind of shit. I'm not gonna be able to talk properly. Anyway, um, so yeah, this talk I'm doing, I'm sure it'll go well. My cousin came over, like I said today, and we've sorted out tickets, printed them out. So that's that. Um, me and him will be in London by 1 o'clock on the 26th, and we'll be leaving about 11 at night, and we'll be back in Exeter by 3 or 4 in the morning. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. It's weird to think like I'm gonna meet people who I've never met before. David was telling me about this, like because I think another meeting of the Extremist Club a couple of months ago, he said to me that people were coming to him and saying, "Oh, I saw you on Adam's podcast." It's a really weird idea to me. Like, it feels really strange that there are people who know me and I have no idea who they are. Um, yeah. What exactly is the Extremists Club? It's, well, like I said in my first video, it's kind of a bohemian sort of gathering of all sorts. It was started by David and Jez Turner, David Parry and Jez Turner. Um, David, of course, is my friend. I know him well. But it was kind of it's it exists on the perimeter of the new right to an extent, with its influence in other things as well. It exists in the kind of alternative sphere of things and of social gatherings and of people and of clubs. It's all very English, you have all these little societies, little clubs, and little organizations, and little gatherings of weird, special people over there, and then a different group over there. It's all very, very localized. So that's kind of the Extremist Club is this meet up they do in London the last Tuesday of every month, where they have talks from all sorts of people, everyone, people on the left, people on the right, people who are outside of it, people who are kind of probably a bit mad, people who aren't at all mad. Uh, it's just kind of an open ideological exchange.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember reading that what's it called? Troy Southgate was involved early on, and he went on to found obviously the whole sort of like weird national anarchism sort of movement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So people like Troy Southgate are involved, as well as David Parry, as well as just Turner, as well as others who I shan't name. So it isn't. Well, it's an extremists gathering, and David came up with that name, by the way. It's a gathering for people who are a bit radical, have views which are outside of the mainstream to a degree, and it's all very open and relaxed, and people just get in a pub and just converse for a while. It's all very, very ordinary, very, very comfortable. So there you go. As Naga says, sounds like a French Enlightenment style salon. Kind of. It's kind of a salon, but it isn't left or right. There is no single agenda other than a kind of generally inclusive atmosphere. Kind of a libertarian atmosphere. Because they can't, they want to bring in different people, have different conversations. It's like Red Ice Radio to an extent. A similar sort of idea. You have all sorts of things, all sorts of agendas, all sorts of angles. But it'd be an interesting thing for me to do, giving a speech. Yeah, so I'm doing it because David asked me to, and I think it's about time I got out of my comfort zone. Because I'm very used to being down here in the southwest by myself doing all this stuff on the internet, and I need to kind of break the mold to an extent. So there you go.
Yeah, we definitely looking forward to seeing the video of that.
Well, cheers. A lot of people are. I've had emails from guys. This one guy in particular, who's wanted to meet up with me for ages. I mean, it's all interesting. I mean, like, just this August, Ed is coming to England, like I've said many times now, which will be good. But it's not an intellectual playpen. It's a social affair. It's not that people sit around just talking forever and ever. A lot of the guys who involve themselves are activists. And again, like you said, Troy Southgate. Troy Southgate is not an armchair intellectual or an intellectual. It doesn't endorse intellectual playpens and that sort of thing. Is Adam a manlet? I'm 6 foot, so I'm about average. About 6 months ago, I was 5'11", but I've grown. So there you go. Benefit of still being a teenager. Don't forget to go Paki bashing on your way out. I won't forget. We'll film that as well. NA style. Oh, based NA.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a bit of a hot topic, but I mean, I was discussing this earlier with Skeleton and I was a bit disappointed that they'd released that video in a sense. I mean, I can see how it might be good for propaganda value, but if you're actually talking about, justice for people who want to molest children, then if they'd done the proper thing, they wouldn't have been able to release that video for fear for their own safety.
That's quite edgy, but yes, I agree with you. Yeah, that's true. Well, what they're doing is kind of interesting. I can't say much because I think Ben or one of the guys does watch my videos. But yeah, there's only so much they're gonna be able to get away with, and there was a big fuss over that. And YouTube took it down, all that sort of thing, and they didn't well, there wasn't any proof. If they included proof in the video and all the rest, I think it would have been better. But whatever the case, just for MI5, I'm not involved with those guys. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Please don't bully me.
Yeah, I mean, I think joining a group which MI5 have openly said to the newspapers, yes, we're watching them, we think they're dangerous. I'm not sure that's always the best idea.
No. and I've said before, I wouldn't join any sort of group like that, just for pragmatic reasons. Not because I fear for my privacy or safety. I wouldn't be using my face, rename it, etc.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it just
Yeah, I think with that sort of violence at this point is just sort of counterproductive.
it's yeah. I've said this before, like not to endorse violence. Let's be hypothetical here, GCHQ. Um, but in a scenario where actual vigilante violence is of any long-term political effectiveness, you have to have prior a state of kind of um, civil chaos or weakness in the state, in the government as it is, where things you have a domino effect. Therefore, but right now the status quo is just too strong. Acts of violence. While yeah, the morality of such an action aside, they will not achieve anything politically aside
Mm.
from the reinforcement of a leftist narrative that everyone to the right of Marx is basically Hitler with steroids. So it just kind
Yeah,
of
although yeah, I mean, I agree with you about violence. Although I mean, it's not something I've entirely made up my mind about. But other sorts of more subtle, if technically illegal, resistance, sort of strategic acts of vandalism and the like, on like symbolically important targets. What would you think of that?
I had no problem with things like that. Um, although I wouldn't involve myself with things like that, not only because again I wouldn't involve myself in the physicality of these things, it would be inappropriate. But again, if what is one's goal? If one's goal is to enact a long-term change, surely then if something is symbolic and important, it will have some long-term impact. However, if something is going to be forgotten in the role of the 24-hour news cycle, that quickly, then where's the point in doing it?
Yeah, I mean, just an example of the. I mean, it's probably a bit more high profile than what I'm generally thinking of, but there's an example in Poland. I think it was early 2015. There was sort of like a gay pride event in Poland. I think it was Warsaw, and sort of the town square almost. They had this big giant sort of almost like a wreath with the rainbow on
Oh,
it.
I remember
So
this.
nationalists stormed the area and burned it down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, the situation in Poland is different to the situation here.
Mm.
Where we are. If something like that happened, it would do nothing. Um, they would simply do it again tomorrow and just have more police. But you see
Mm.
similar things happening in Russia. I mean, some real fucking horrible shit goes down in Russia. Like anarchists, like publicly like hanging gay people in like some parts of Russia. Things like that, which uh, hmm, yeah, those sorts of things aren't going to have much influence in a place like Russia. They are simply a symptom of pre-existing social trends. They will not affect those trends, really.
Mm.
Would they perpetuate them? No, because it's ideology which perpetuates those things, and acts don't really perpetuate ideology. Theory often does in the minds of those sorts of people. So, but no, you have to. Uh, Political action rides on the coattails of mass socioeconomic change, typically speaking. This is why things like the migrant crisis are very important, because these events are having more influence upon people and upon people's decision making and their ideology and their morality than some lads beating up some Pakis. If you have these massive shifts, these massive changes which occur, and they do occur, this history is cyclical. These things are destined to repeat because human nature stays the same, and subject to the right to repeat, subject to the same environment, repeatable results can be found with human nature. So basically, any political movement will ride the wave of that sort of change. So the rise of the right in Europe, for example, what we're doing right now isn't so much causal of other things as in so much as it is symptomatic of underlying currents. It's linked to what I'll be doing my speech about. Why are people becoming right wing? Why are people dissatisfied with modernity? When people look to mass immigration, when people look to the politics, when people look to this and that, these things kind of drive the people. Obviously, you get into a chicken and egg scenario eventually, but any successful political organization rides the wave of socioeconomic undercurrents, often in a tactful and intelligent way. So, best example, Nazi Germany, and what Adolf Hitler did with the SS, Prague, Gestapo, etc. He was riding a wave of social attitude and ideology, which manifested itself at various points directed by him and other intelligent creatures. So you have agents and actors there, but there has to be something pre-existent before them for them to act upon. So yeah, basically, in short, political violence, action, all these sorts of things, they will only ever be effective once the morality of them changes, once they become more acceptable, which is a sign for things changing beneath the surface. Then these things will actually have some, they will be efficacious. Otherwise, they will just be subsumed by the status quo. I don't know if what I just said makes sense. It was a bit of a word salad, but
No, I mean, absolutely, and I mean, I think that's always been more or less true, but I think that's especially true today, given the
yeah,
particularly sort of the way our economy works, sort of free market capitalism, just how good the sort of market economy is at integrating its enemies into itself. So, like, I mean, the best example is obviously sort of the social justice warrior or communist or Afrocentrist sort of spheres. They just turn that into another market to pander to, rather than they sort of bring it into itself and sort of neutralize it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, also to consider is mass information and media and communications and the way in which intellectual technology behaves, ideological, and how ideology is filtered through a technological matrix, and which thought patterns are encouraged by the ways in which people communicate with one another. This is part of Nobody TM's work. The ways in which social media and so forth influence people's actual political opinions. Gustave Le Bon's book, The Crowd, goes into this, and how crowds of people behave totally differently than individuals. We are dealing with this web of factors and of possibilities, and again, it brings us up to things like that. This idea of leftist ideology filtered through a capitalist lens. Parallel, we could bring up the European Union and how that's exactly basically what that does. It's just this kind of super capitalist body, which just perpetuates leftism in this kind of strange way. But social media is like that. The free market is like that. Leftism breeds leftism, and it says this idea of freedom and liberation. It perpetuates itself, and if you filter that through social technology and the ways in which people interact in the modern world, texting and the news cycle and city living and all these sorts of things, you have then a fertile breeding ground for more of the status quo. And then to break out of that is interesting. That again, that's something I'll get into in my talk. And of course, just to finish this point, once you break out of it, it becomes much more obvious. Like a fish swimming in water, suddenly he's beached. The world is totally different. because you're subsisting within a system, and once you exit the system and enter in a way another, you can look back upon it, and that's basically what most of us have done. Most people listening to this, you and I suppose, um, we can look back upon these things and analyze them from the outside to an extent.
Hmm. Yeah, although I definitely think you caught onto a good point there, especially regarding social media. Because I think communications technology generally has sped up the decline, not just in the sense that it makes this ideology easier to access, but in the sense that I think I'm not sure if you agree, but I think it's easier to be convinced of something patently ridiculous on text as opposed to the sort of people who already believe that, telling it to you in person. It's a very sort of different sort of environment there, sort of different vibrancy there. If you read on paper that, this sort of some text on sociology, for example, that tells you something patently ridiculous from an academic, then that's a lot more effective than some, overweight, sort of horrible looking woman basically screeching at you about something vaguely related to it.
Mm. Yeah, because the packaging of ideology is often its selling point, especially in the modern world. And I mean, the you have to look at how people gather and process information. Most people will only be open to information which they are already kind of privy to, information which they have already, at some level, subconsciously or otherwise, accepted. And in a world with leftist presuppositions, uh, you have this kind of self-reinforcing spiral. Um, and of course, like you say, when the physicality of these things is taken away, when the coarseness is taken away, the sort of coarseness which kind of rends the veil, the idea of this kind of Marxist, this kind of Jewish Marxist professor ranting at white students, telling them they should kill themselves, for example, if you want to be really, dramatic. Um, the sort of extremity and implied violence of that scenario breaks the mold of kind of just having an opinion. Um, whereas leftism can disguise itself well within social media and within these sorts of things without any of that, and relies really just upon social pressure. Once enough people vaguely subscribe to some strange idea, this abstract idea, others can submit to that because there are all sorts of implications. If an idea is wishy-washy, it becomes almost more powerful because you can imply lots from that. You can you can you can generalize, if you see what I mean. So if you have, I mean, Brexit was a great example of this. The majority of the people who voted to stay in the European Union didn't actually vote for the actual European Union and the idea of a national trading bloc, which ultimately becomes kind of Soviet-esque power. They weren't voting for that as a political machination, which is what the European Union is. They were voting for the vague notion of togetherness and of unity and inclusivity and of, you don't want to be divisive. That's a
Mm.
fucking word they use so much. It's so annoying. Don't be
Yeah, that,
divisive.
and especially among the young, it seems there's sort of a vague conception that they're all going to go off and just someday think, I'm bored of it and I'm going to go work in France for a year. Or some ridiculous notion like that will
It's
never
it's
actually
it's,
materialize once they
yeah.
grow up.
It's a vague idea of freedom and just do what you like. And obviously, you could go into broader philosophical kind of currents here regarding individualism and so forth. But they were voting and acting based upon this kind of strange, amorphous concept of openness and friendship, which is nothing to do with the European Union as a political entity, as an economic entity, as a supra-political entity. Um, the facts speak for themselves. regarding the European Union, whether or not it's good or bad for this or that particular reason. But I mean, you see this on like social media, um, and obviously we can go into language use and biases and all these sorts of things. But you have this nexus there. You have this vortex of kind of self-fulfilling ideology. To step outside of it is a strange and interesting thing to do. Um, and it's funny, you don't have to just be a riotist to do this. My friend, my leftist friend, he's done this to an extent. Having conversed with him, knowing him well, um, we I don't want to say we agree on a lot. We he understands my arguments. He doesn't often say I disagree with you. I'll say that much. But if he were listening to this right now, he'd understand exactly what we're talking about. So I don't think it's just a rightist. You don't have to be a rightist and all those sheeple leftists over there. It's more complicated than that. But obviously, this is the sort of thing I'll get into in my talk. I don't want to just fucking hash out the half an hour speech um, in a hangout. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, this is an interesting one. We'll have to go into it. I'll have to do it, write about it or something. Can I clarify some of these thoughts because I'm spewing language everywhere again. Um, oh dear. I'm gonna get a cup of tea, so I'll be
Right.
right back. right, and hello everyone. Again, I have a cup of tea. Right. And by the way,
Hello.
do let me know if my quality drops or whatever, especially with the camera. I might have to just go audio only if it's going to do that. It's going to play up.
It's been good so far.
That's good. Are there any darkies in Devon? Yeah, there are a few. Globalism has hit us a bit. But my street, for example, is 100% white. My next door neighbour, they're Poles, but they're Catholics, and they all work. So it's like, you know. But yeah, there are darkies here. Most of them come for the university and other things. Fuck's sake, 5 years ago, or when I was younger, actually, 6, 7 years ago, there weren't any homeless people in Exeter, and there were very, 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 very few darkies. 7 years on, it's a bit different. That's why I'm kind of going to London will be interesting because Westminster, where Soho is like 70% white, 70% English, or I suppose about 60% English. But it'll be a different vibe, to say the least.
Yeah, London was certainly an interesting experience for me, having lived in Scotland, which is pretty white, and lived in Northern Ireland, where I've never seen a single non-white person outside of Belfast ever.
Mm.
So,
Yeah,
it's
that's
certainly interesting.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to go to London. We won't be like sightseeing. We get off at Victoria Station about 1. So and thereafter we'll likely meet up with David and whoever else for a few hours. And we'll see what happens from there. When are you debating Sargon? I'm never debating Sargon. There was one encounter a few months ago where I tried to explain to him what the alt-right was. He disagreed with my definition, and it just kind of broke down from then. But if I can help it, I won't be speaking to Carl. I don't have too much against him personally. I just don't. There's no reason to. I don't think he's very. He's a bit slimy, and I don't mean that in a cruel way. I just don't. He's not as transparent as some people. He's not very. He. I'm just thinking back to our conversation and all the things he did which pissed me off. Just slimy little fucking. Like if you do it, like some of the things you would say, and you just know if it was in person that you wouldn't have done those sorts of things, and some of the sophistry. Oh fuck, it just makes me angry because it's just honest. It's just so dishonest. Anyway, we won't get into that because there's just no reason to bitch about people like that. Do you consider yourself alt-right or new right or far right or whatever? All of those things. What you're describing there are different networks and different communities. Who is or isn't involved in those sorts of things is very, very relative, near subjective, and differs person per person. Is Alain de Benoit part of the new right? Absolutely. Is he part of the alt-right? No, but he has some influence. Is Evola an alt-rightist, or what would he have been? No. But does he have influence? Absolutely. Same with the far right. Is Evola a far rightist? Technically, no. He goes beyond that. Does he have influence? Yes.
Yeah, there's actually a political party in Italy. I think it's Forza Nova, something like that. It's
Yeah.
New Force, whose whole sort of ideology is constructed largely around Evolus. I mean, it's not sort of just pure sort of traditionalism or anything. It's largely sort of hybridized with a lot of sort of fascist ideas to the point where it comes at sort of like a more sort of just fascist, like spiritualistic fascism.
That's interesting.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was actually, I'm trying to remember what they were called, but yeah, there was actually a terrorist group in Italy who based a lot of their ideology on Evola.
Yeah, the
Oh,
black something.
yeah,
Um,
black something. Yeah, they bombed a train station.
yeah, yeah. Even though Evola wouldn't even condone that. Um,
Yeah.
so there you go. It's one of these things. It's one of the funny things about the far right is you have people at Evola who are extremely radical. And I mean, it came out in their life and what they did. The mountaineering, fascism, meeting Codrianu, you're fighting in the First World War. And yet, you have some people who just want to fucking kill people and smash shit up. And Evola wasn't one of those people. Um, there is nothing chivalrous about gunning down innocent civilians. That would be Evola's view. And it's
Mm.
also why, like Bowden said this in his talk about like Evola in Saudi Arabia, he wouldn't really support this sort of fundamentalism, especially in the Islamic world, because just as how animalistic it is, a lot of the idea of jihad is kind of thrown out the window when you're gunning down women and children. Um, so I think that should
Mm.
be self-evident there, and a point like that is often missed with the more far right, gross. Those sorts of people who just oh, everyone's a fascist this, fascist that. That sort of nuance is missed on those sorts of people, but you know,
Yeah.
Black Hand. No, we this isn't anything to do with the Elder Scrolls. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't. I remember reading this. I remember reading it somewhere. The it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't now. Anyway, what do I think of third position? What do you think I think of third position? I'm kind of a third positionist to a degree, but I wouldn't say that. I don't know. Does it matter? If you challenged a rival politician in a duel, would Evola approve? Yeah, probably. Um, but obviously, in a democratic system, that just wouldn't happen. At least not nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think dueling was banned. I think in the late 1700s, if
Yeah,
not earlier.
yeah,
I mean, it didn't.
yeah.
It didn't stop until like the mid 1800s. But yeah,
Oh, it was still going on after then. I mean, in like the 19th century, you can find instances of men dueling each other. Um, you know, but just legally, I suppose you can't have your politicians killing each other all the time if you can help it. They're supposed to be running a country.
mm.
Lysander asks, "Why the fuck can't I type in chats?" I don't know. Um, much of these comments aren't just shitposting, but there you go. Just as usual, nothing new there. Um, what's on my mind? Not a lot. I've been kind of absent from YouTube for the past few weeks. I haven't been doing many live streams. Haven't done much. Um, I was ill for a while, and then I just fell out of it. And I still kind of feel a bit out of it. I feel about kind of outside of things, kind of.
Mm. Yeah. Although I mean, you did that. You got like plebeian podcast on perennialism
I
with
did that
David, which
conversation
was
with David. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I found his views very, very, very interesting because I mean, unlike a lot of other sort of traditionalist types, he does really seem to integrate pretty much all sort
Mm.
of world religions, even the ones that we would consider to be, chthonic and not, truly of sort of like an upright tradition, which is an interesting perspective.
It is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's definitely more than me. He's much more inclusive. He's much more liberal in his character. Not mean politics, but in character. Um, but it is interesting because with David, I don't think there is much. with some of the people or some of the things you had mentioned, Wicca, for example, there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot wrong with some of those communities and there's a lot of misunderstanding. But with David, it isn't there. You can talk to him about these things and he kind of understands it all and he just kind of gets it. It's just kind of, he kind of clicked. He reminds me of, who was it? English guy, I think, convert to Muslim, convert to Islam. He was a student of Frithjof Schuon's.
Mm.
I can't remember his name, but it reminds me of him. Also reminds me of Schuon to a degree. Not so much hardline politics, but the philosophy, the perennial philosophy, does have its political implications, and they are quite clear, and they can't just be. I mean, pragmatically, you can't go around just being being that stubborn. One has to be a little bit more realistic, especially if you want to actually involve oneself in the world to an extent. But it is interesting to see all these sorts of things shine through in David. He's definitely an interesting man. I'm glad to have met him. But we'll see what happens. Bring the Hebe, Ed. I don't know where Ed is. He's been having tech problems lately, again, as well as he's been having monetary problems as well, ironically enough. So he's been he's also undergoing a bit of a personal crisis at the moment as well. So he's kind of detaching, to put it one way. When he visits me in August, that'll be really good. Yeah, he is around. He's just kind of dealing with himself to an extent. Is there any reason we shouldn't just nuke every Middle Eastern and African country? I think if you're asking that question, you don't belong here. Just saying, like, do I really need to give that question? I gave that question more respect than it even deserved by even reading it.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you were seriously considering the notion of yes, we should conquer the whole of Africa and the Middle East, I can't think of a less chivalric way of eliminating one's enemies than raining down nuclear weapons.
Yeah. I mean, what's the intention? Just to kill for killing's sake? No. And anyway, why the fuck would you want to conquer Africa?
I don't know. I suppose if you have sort of pragmatic concerns in the mines, there are some parts that are quite mineral rich and the like.
Oh, but you wouldn't conquer just for those sorts of reasons. You'd have other reasons. There's nothing in Africa. The African soul, if it even exists, is it really worth is it even worth pursuing? Subduing, conquering? No. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
conquer Africa for Lebensraum.
Yeah. No, I mean, even the first time around, sort of, the conquering of Africa, that was, I mean, it was pretty easy, all things considered. But there was at least some challenge in it. There was some risk, you're going up with your musket or whatever, and, there's a risk that some tribesman might get a lucky shot in and hit you with a spear. But, I mean, if you're going in with tanks and helicopters against tribesmen, I mean, there isn't really much challenge or sort of glory in conquest in that.
No, there's not. What's the glory in that? It's like punching a disabled child. Like, just why bother? It'd be funny, but it wouldn't be much else. Oh dear. Have you read Heart of Darkness? No. No, we don't need to conquer Africa. whoever we is anyway.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh bloody hell! 1 o'clock almost. I feel like we need something to give us a bit of energy, bit of something to play with, something to get our teeth into. It's been
Hmm.
lots of really good stuff on West Coast reactionaries lately. Really good articles, especially from Alex. Um, his fiction has been really interesting, kind of Nietzschean,
Hmm.
Bowden-esque sort of writing. Also did write the other day something called "The End of Economy," where well, it's kind of it says what it says on the tin, but it's all very impressive. There's an article from P.T. Carla today, the uh, the submission of Ross Douthat, some American nonce. Uh, P.T. Carla keeps doing these like basically literary executions of these like poor American conservatives. It's kind of messy to watch, but it's good. Um, I haven't written anything this week. I need to spew something somewhere. See what happens. But I'm glad things are picking up there, which is good. Like I said to you, Jack, you're
Yeah.
still welcome to write if you ever want to, as much as you maybe feel that isn't your forte.
Yeah, I think yeah, writing, yeah, it's not my strong point.
No. What is it? Is it the Irish blood?
It may be, it may indeed be. It's just the blood alcohol level is just perpetually too high to allow me to concentrate enough to sit down and write.
Yeah, like your average jock, or take, not jock, tag, your average tag, like 50% of what's flowing through his veins isn't even blood, it's just Guinness, you know?
No, it's not even Guinness. It's just pure potching.
like some some of the farmers down here is cider, you know, and you just
Mm.
from talking to them, oi, my lover, oi, how you doing today? We're down to market, sort of thing. I'm
Mm.
glad I haven't picked up on that Devonian too much. I went through. I still kind of sometimes say can't or yeah instead of can't, but I'm gradually training myself to speak properly again. I used to when I was younger say can't and bath and fast, but my friends were Devonians, so they were all gotta run fast, that sort of thing. Then some of them were chavs as well, so it was like fucking gotta run fast from me, dickhead, or fucking stab you, that sort of thing. Um, so you kind of pick it up. So
It's always confused me how they who sort of imitate the more sort of the sort of macho sort of bravado end up with the most sort of like high pitched squeaky voices like of all the
it, it,
population.
yeah, yeah,
It's
well,
confusing.
it isn't macho-ness or bravado though. It's a kind of it's like a little aggressive dog. Like, if you get you fucking close, right, it will fucking bite your fucking hand and take a finger off. But it's just a little thing, and if you keep it at a distance, you could punt it really, really quite far. But but you have it. I mean, like some of the fucking trash where we live. There's not much, but there's a bit. Just kind of just human refuse. Uh, that sounds really bad, but um, like scrawny. They always walk really quickly. Um, they were like sunken eyes from like crack and shit like that. Um,
Or the sunken eyes. I mean, I have a sort of a family member who's a medical researcher, and they tell me that that's effect is largely not due to drug abuse. It tends
right.
to be from multi generational malnutrition and fetal alcohol syndrome.
Fuck. Okay, there you
That
go.
sort
There's a
of
bit of
the
that
eyes.
mixed in as well.
So you,
Um,
in a sense, sort of the chavs or sort of neds, as I would call them, have almost begun to speciate.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you're right. They have like yeah down here. They're all like 5'5". They're all kind of 5'5", scrawny. They'll be with their mates. Oh yeah, bruv. That sort of thing. I'll be
Before
like
long, it'll
stood
be
behind,
the
I'll be like stood behind them at the shop, you know, like towering over them. Not that much, like yeah, 5 inches, 6 inches. Um,
yeah. No, but yeah, and
and
before long, it will be like the Morlocks and the Eloy. I'm guessing.
yeah, but it's just like, ugh. But there's some of the local wildlife around here. There aren't really niggers. We don't get those. Um, well, you do seem to get an interesting mix of immigrated, or immigrant descended Muslims from the Middle East, kind of merging with this kind of chav stereotype of this kind of scrawny, loudmouth cunt. So you kind of have these like tan-skinned kind of like yobs wearing like tracksuits, you know, who are Muslim. It's a strange mix. You're getting this kind of urban, yeah, this kind of urban thing going on. So we don't
Mm,
get much of it again down here because it's the countryside. Technically, Exeter is a city, but it's within the countryside. It's kind of out of the way. Um, in London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Luton, you get these sorts of things more common. Like in Manchester, Liverpool, fucking violence, like mental.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think that the Muslims who integrate into the sort of chav culture, I mean, they're pretty bad, but they're still not as bad as the Muslims who integrate into like the black culture. They are, they're like just downright just sort of twisted.
I've never seen that. Yeah,
Mm.
I've never seen that. We don't have that down here. We don't really have black culture down here. There aren't enough blacks. Um,
Mm.
and the blacks who are down here don't like Pakis. It's genuine, like some in London even. Um, when I was working at the warehouse a couple of years ago now, we had you get lorry drivers coming and dropping off pallets of things, right? And this one time you got this black Briton from London, from North London, I think from Edmonton, where my grandparents grew up, and he was talking with my granddad, complaining about all these Muslims, um, these Paki bastards fucking coming into our fucking country, all this sort of thing. Come from the black guys. It's interesting. You get this like, kind of, the minorities are more fragmented here than they seem to be in the United States, at least. Um, Maybe fucking good grief, what happened recently, um, with this whole Black Lives Matter inspired killing of policemen.
Mm.
Do you know about that?
Yeah, in Dallas, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly concerning, and but I mean, I mean, obviously, I'd think it'd be amusing, and I think I would quite like Trump to get in. But I mean, honestly, what is that going to turn into once Trump gets in power? If he does,
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
certainly going to polarize.
no, you're not gonna. It's not. I don't see a bright future for the United States. To be honest, just
No.
this is Colin Liddell did a good article earlier today, I think, or yesterday, late yesterday or earlier today, um, about this, basically criticizing kind of, as he termed, pseudo alt-rightists such as Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McGuinness, Paul Joseph Watson, people who are on the periphery of political incorrectness but aren't quite there, and criticizing them for what they were saying as a response to this Dallas thing. And he was saying they're failing and they're wrong because you cannot hold to account these minority groups to white standards, to European standards, to the standards of the law, and so forth. They will not abide by those paradigms. Um, they will just kill people. They will just react violently, and they will act tribally. They do not care about any sort of political end goal aside from basically just like almost like perpetual. You could run parallel the idea of a kind of Trotskyism, just perpetual revolution and perpetual ideological, ideologically inspired violence against perceived enemies, as it's seen. Um, in this case, against white people, the police, these sort of groups, entities.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're correct with that. But I mean, regarding Black Lives Matter specifically, I honestly don't think that there's much sophistication to it. I think it's just a natural expression of the African spirit within sort of a technologically advanced society. I don't really think
Yeah,
there's
yeah. I'm
much
not
else
saying.
to it than their primitive nature.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that exactly. It isn't the fact that these people have consciously thought out. So yes, we are Trotskyists, and this is how we'll purge the bourgeoisie from every stage. No, they are simply just reacting for reaction's sake because they cannot do anything else. And therefore, you cannot hold them to the standards of American whites because they don't think the same way. They don't act the same way. Their group loyalty is manifest in its own particular way, and it isn't going to change with a bit of education and a bit of, you know, a Facebook infographic. That's not going to convince any of them because, yeah, they see and that's the thing. What we see is cultural Marxism has given them uh, actual ammunition to nullify even the possibility of this. So they can say, "Oh, it's white privilege. You're white splaining." So they can shut down any potentiality of a challenge, moral, ideological, ethical, by using this kind of Marxist terminology, by using this progressive kind of terminology, which has been given to them by American Jews and whites. So you have therefore this horrible situation which cannot be stopped. I mean, it's simply every single time a black man is even handled slightly roughly by police, whether the police are black or white. It's oh, violence there, discrimination, Black Lives Matter, right? Um, and the liberal establishment, as it is, has absolutely no response to it. And the moderate rightist response, the response of Paul Watson and others, is all you're not thinking rationally. You know, they aren't going to think rationally, and never will do. Um, They need to be educated, this sort of thing. They aren't going to be educated. You can't educate them. But like you say, it's a natural expression of the African spirit. Uh, it's funny to say that, but there you go.
Mm.
At least configured through this particular lens.
Mm. Yeah, but I mean, even these sort of mainstream rightists, just I mean, all of their solutions to any of these problems, regardless of sort of the ideological statements behind them, just show they have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, this is especially seems to be true with sort of like the Republicans in the US, who they say, "Oh, the problem with the sort of the black community in America, it's not anything inherent or it's that the government is on their back. We're taxing them too highly. Where the welfare is keeping them down." And I'm sure there is a slight degree of truth to that in some sense, but it still doesn't resolve any fundamental problem.
No. Yeah, this idea that you have mm, a mass of white folk and a mass of black folk trying to coexist under exactly the same system. That itself, this kind of silly post-enlightenment universalist idea, is itself the problem. Um,
Or, well, I mean, you can have a sort of a multiracial society in that sense, at least for a period, and you have it by essentially one racial group subjugating and controlling the other the way it used to be, and there was a degree of stability in America when that was the case. But I mean, those sorts of systems are always bound to break down over time, whoever sort of desirable they might be in the first place.
yes, I agree with you. James has left an interesting comment saying this has really just happened because the blacks in America, by and large, are just descended from slaves. As in the blacks who were stupid enough to be enslaved in the first place. See, they were the ones who were too slow and too thick to actually, there's probably
Mm.
some truth
I
to
mean,
that.
I think that might be an aspect of it, but no, I think if you brought in sort of just like just random Africans from Africa today and put them in as migrants. I mean, well, they'd probably be a bit more grateful for a generation or two because of the the jobs, the increased wealth, whatever. But I think you'd fundamentally end up with the same problems because I mean, Africa didn't exist as extremely primitive sort of hunter-gatherer tribes for so long just by accident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. The point stands. The point stands that European systems do not belong to anyone really but Europeans, and they cannot be enforced. Otherwise, you will just end up with these sorts of problems and clear displays of disharmony. Generally speaking, of course, not all African Americans are like these fucking animals. Of course not. Um, but you have this large number who are, or at least a disproportionate number who are. Um, and it's something which is just being encouraged and facilitated further by ideology. Leftism perpetuates it, and the kind of mainstream rightism has no answers to it. It has no mechanisms, has no ways of stopping it. So there you go. There's not a lot we could say about the situation to analyze it that isn't actually just self-evident. Every time there's an event like this, it simply confirms what we on the, I suppose, alt-right, what people on the actual right have been saying for fucking forever. So it's kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm. Um, it's 1 o'clock now. We've been going for about 2 hours.
Mm.
Do you have anything you want us to talk about? Anything on your mind?
Oh,
Anything?
I,
Anything? No?
I can't think of anything of note.
It's fine. It's late. It's on the fly. It's difficult. Anything in the chat? We'll have. I'll keep my eye on the chat for a minute. If there are any questions, throw them at us. We'll wrap things up otherwise, or afterwards, quite shortly. But
Mm.
yeah. Cheers for joining me. I haven't done a hangout for a week. No, I was ill, and then
Mm.
every fucking 3 weeks I get ill, just for like 4 days, but it just fucks everything up. Who killed Jonathan Bowden? Oh no. Jonathan killed Jonathan Bowden. Silly bastard couldn't focus himself, and couldn't balance himself properly, and that led to where it led. A flame which burns twice as bright lasts half as long, unfortunately. When will the US split up into smaller states? Well, neither of us are American, so we couldn't really tell you. I will guess a very, very liberal estimate within the next 300 years. There we go.
Oh, well, I mean,
I think
I think the more prudent question is when will it be absorbed into Mexico?
oh, yeah. Make America Mexico again. There are like people holding signs like that. Oh dear. A bit brave of them, I must say, but no one's going to stop them, so it's not, I suppose, brave.
Yeah.
Do you play piano? No. My mother does. I can't because of my fingers. Why do cultural libertarians, quote unquote, love using the word regressive? Because then they can still be nice to everyone because it's just a thinly veiled way of being egalitarian. Because if they say regressive, they can say, oh, their intentions are good, they mean well, they're just uninformed. Oh, they've regressed, they were on the right path, but they've made a mistake. So it's
Mm.
another way of saying, please listen to me. I'm not an evil right winger. In reality, I love everyone, but here's why my special snowflake opinions are right. It's a clever use of language, but it's ultimately just disingenuous and ineffective because these people who are noticing post-enlightenment problems are posing post-enlightenment solutions. So it's kind of not going to get anywhere. People like Milo Yiannopoulos, McGuinness, their ideologies are ultimately very useless, and they're responding to progressive stupidity as it stands in the 21st century, rightfully so, but it's just not enough. It's not extreme enough. You
Mm.
have to attack the fundamentals of what motivates these ideologies. Otherwise, you are simply just perpetuating them. Uh, so, but that's why they like using that word. It's so they can be inclusive and make themselves look tolerant because they are ultimately leftists themselves. It's like when they say, "Oh," it's like when they complain about racism, like Joseph Paul Watson, Paul Joseph Watson. He complain about people being racist. I knew that piano was just to look sophisticated. It's a fucking £3 piano, you cunt. Wouldn't fucking buy it, just look sophisticated. It's me mum's. I can't play. What will happen with the UK and the Commonwealth after Brexit? Not a lot. Um, Nothing in particular. A bit more sovereignty, and we can kind of decide what we want to do without some fucking German bastard telling us what to do. But aside from that, it's going to be business as usual. Brexit, Brexit is important geopolitically. It is important politically. It is important economically. But until there is an actual ideological slash moral shift in the population to stop mass immigration, to reverse it in some instances, or to begin to reverse it, or to begin to accept the idea of reversing it, nothing will change. And it's the same goes for liberal values. You have to get people to toss them aside and go for something more conservative, more traditional. Until that happens on a mass level, nothing will happen.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there, but I mean, the idea that people are going to come around to this before there is some sort of a calamity, I wouldn't
Yeah,
really
exactly.
hold
People
to.
will do that, right? Yeah, people will basically anticipate it. If you, once you see economy collapsing, the economy collapse, sorry, and various, if London, for example, declares itself a sovereign state within the UK, it technically is, as it stands. Just so you guys know, technically it is. Um, but if it does it in a kind of forthright manner, that will have very strong impact, especially in the southwest. You will see then like Cornish nationalism spike and all these sorts of tendencies which have to be triggered by the right things, but they play upon other factors, like we said earlier. Social change, mass social change, is a complex ball of possibilities, which you often see anticipated by intellectuals, by the culture, and by what is morally or what is acceptable in the culture. Um, the alt-right, as it's called, is becoming cooler. It's becoming more acceptable. It's growing in size, more people involved, yada yada yada. That's a good sign because it's a sign of the young people, and it is young people, millennials, changing their minds about things, you know. But these things will take time, and I'm not an analyst, so I'm not going to try and guess like political trends and so forth. But you'll feel it coming.
and it is happening as it is. Within our lifetimes, the majority of people listening to this, watching this, within the next 50 years, we'll see dramatic changes in mainland Europe, especially in Germany and France. Extreme, dramatic demographic shifts, and a lot will come from that.
Well, I mean, I mean, 50 years might be a better estimate for the UK, but in Germany, it's only going to be about 10 years before the number of native young males is the same as the number of foreign young males.
Yeah,
And as I always said, that's what's really important. It's not about who can vote the most, it's about who has the most young men willing to pick up arms. That's who has the most people willing to go out in the street and intimidate people. That's what actually matters.
Yep.
And so within 20 years, we'll see what the fate of Germany will be, and I'm guessing either about the same as that or sooner for France.
Yeah. As I said, within that time frame, we'll see serious shit go down. But yeah, so get hyped, to put it one way.
Yeah, start prepping.
Yeah.
Build the bunker.
Go in the woods, guys.
Yeah.
Do you think that support for the alt-right will burn out? No. The alt-right will change. It is changing. It has changed in the past 2 years. It will change. It become something different. If you look at ideological phenomena historically, it isn't always as clear cut as it begins and it ends. Things change. Things fade into one another. The existentialist movement, for example, incorporated people like Nietzsche and Sartre. I can't think of anyone two people more opposed, and yet they had that connection through existentialism. Heidegger was also an existentialist. Um, so you have the way these sorts of intellectual things pop up, cultural things pop up. It's all very vague and difficult to pin down. Some things are easier to pin down. Neo-reaction is very easy to pin down. They have a fucking website where they explain exactly what they're doing. Moldbug and Land, they have very clear-cut philosophies. So you can look to that and see what it is. Started in 2007, went on for a bit thereafter, and then has influence elsewhere. But these sorts of cultural ideological happenings, it can be difficult to pin down. And really, they're very relative, very time and place specific. Adam, do you own any guns? Mate, I'm in fucking England. What do you think? No. There are people in my family who own projectile armaments, but no, I don't own any guns. I would like to get a gun eventually, but it's not exactly a straightforward process. But eventually, I will.
Yeah, I've looked into the process myself for hunting because I mean, I probably shouldn't go down that path. Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking to sort of get a rifle for hunting and the like, and there are some pretty sort of, it's almost a catch-22 because basically you already need to have land which you have permission to hunt on in order to apply for the license. But generally, if you go and ask someone for permission to hunt on land or pay for whatever, they generally say like, right, where's your qualification to, own and use a firearm? So it's very sort of almost deliberately tricky to get one, even for a completely legitimate purpose.
Yeah. And Maze says he does live next to a rifle club. You just need 50 quid and a valid reason, valid in parentheses. Well, I've never looked into it myself, vaguely, but it's a bit fucking early for that sort of shit, don't you think? I have other concerns and worries. But yeah, like I said, I will be getting a gun eventually, for obvious reasons. Right. I think we'll do a couple more questions and then we'll fuck off.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Oh dear. Right, there aren't any questions yet. We'll give it another couple of minutes. Otherwise, I'm gonna go to bed, and I think you will probably as well, Jack.
Yeah.
Here they're just talking about weaponry, mate. This isn't fucking Lindsay Beige, you know, or Scalagrim, whatever his name is.
Yeah. He's a surprisingly liberal guy.
Yeah, well, he's what do you expect? He's just kind of one of these alternative lifestyle sorts of people. That yeah, it's just they are just libertarian types, liberty obsessed. Just give me that freedom, just because you know. This is why freedom is an interesting topic. Freedom in and of itself. What do you mean by that word? But also why? Freedom for what reason? To do what? It requires a direction. That word. It's you know, some people are more fit for freedom in different ways than others.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, according to the chat, Scalagram is a furry, which I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That wouldn't surprise me. But whatever. There are plenty of degenerates. I'm not going to do a common filth and just get pissed off at every degenerate.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean that is a sort of being interested in furry stuff. That is like, you know, I don't know how you put it, a pit-worthy offence.
Yeah, yeah. That's one for the pit right there. Is Christianity too cucks to be helpful as a traditional ideology? I've mentioned this fucking topic so many times, dude. Are you fucking new here? It's only cucks if Christians are cucked. If they aren't, then you get a Codrianu. If they are, then you get Pope Francis. They're both Christian. It's not as simple as this religion makes people cucked. It's a bit more complex than that. But there you go. Has shitposting gone too far? Never far enough.
Yeah, I mean, implying this whole alt-right thing isn't just like, you know, one big shit post, and we're not actually just, you know, mainstream liberals.
Yeah, implying I'm not like an anarcho-syndicalist or syndicalist. And this isn't all just like an ironic kind of modern art experiment. This whole like channel and writing, you know, it's just art. And like 5 years from now, when I'm like giving speeches at the London Forum, and I'm like, you know, personal friends of like Guillaume Fay, you know, then I'll reveal it's just a ruse, and it was all just like documented for a social. It was just a social experiment.
Yeah, that, and you'll obviously slip some of the notes to the what they call them, the UAF.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm actually under the employ of the UAF. Secretly. What are your thoughts on Common Filth? I'm not keen on Common Filth. I don't have anything against him personally, but he needs to fucking learn how to ride the tiger, or else he is going to fucking kill himself. And I mean that genuinely. He will end up fucking just kind of losing it. And I think he's, I don't know, within another couple of years, he will do something drastic. But he needs to learn how to fucking ride the tiger. He needs to learn how to transmute these things. But he's such a fucking basic bitch American Christian that it kind of limits that. But there you go.
Yeah, that and his reaction to the Orlando shooting might have been a bit over the top.
I'm not aware of that.
Oh, it was on Twitter and his channel and stuff. Basically, it was just like a ha-ha faggots response.
Oh dear. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that sort of thing. Like, yeah, we get it. Liberalism is bad. Being degenerate is bad. But so fucking what? He can make all these videos observing this and pointing this out and exposing this to you that you didn't already know, but you did. But it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. It's not going to end. And therefore, he just kind of gets into this kind of frenzy. Psychologically, it's not good for him. Just good for it's for his mental health. It is very unhealthy what he's doing. And he's not even doing like what Nobody TM does. Nobody TM is an alchemist. Like the way he transfigures the sorts of nonsense in the modern world as it is, it's filtered through a particular way. All the elements are exposed, and you can observe it for what it is without the harm of it infecting you, if you see what I mean. With Common Filth, it's just full on degenerates, just fucking degenerates. So there you go. And it's just not good for you. He needs to find a way to ride the tiger. He fucking, I worry about him. You don't like seeing people fucking do that kind of shit to themselves. But he really needs to learn a bit of alchemy, learn how to ride the tiger, something, or else he is just gonna fucking lose his mind. But there you go. I'm not subscribed to him anymore. I don't watch his stuff anymore. I did for a while, but not very long. Because it's just like, yeah, I know, degenerate's gonna degenerate. Like I know, yes. I don't need like 100 fucking hour-long videos telling me, explaining all this. You fucking walk out in the street, you see it. But there you go.
Yeah, and I don't imagine it's best for one's physical health to be continually repulsed by everything you see.
No. You have to find a way of. There's never been a perfectly virtuous, beautiful age of perfection. As you said earlier, man is flawed by his very nature. Heaven is not attainable on earth. That's why you have heaven and earth. That's why we have this distinction in the first place. It's why you have fallen man. Because perfection and all these things, they do not exist on the world, in the world as it is. We can glimpse the sun through the clouds, through art and beauty and virtue and all these things, but they exist as manifestations of things which exist at another level. And so constantly going on about how, oh look, the fucking, a bigoty truth isn't here at the temporal level. It isn't here, it isn't here, it isn't here, it isn't here, like going on and on. It's not going to get you anywhere. That doesn't mean it's going to get any closer. It doesn't mean you're going to find goodness in the world just by pointing out that there isn't goodness in the world. You have to transcend it. You have to overcome it in some way. But there you go. That's my Common Filth needs to get good and read Ride the Tiger.
Did you see Argent's video on the topic of Common Filth? It was rather amusing.
No.
What if Common Filth was president?
Oh, fuck. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, it's quite funny.
Will Sargon ever be red-pilled? He kind of is, but he just doesn't like people to know. I had a private conversation with him. 3-hour long. Much more relaxed. He's a different person in private than he is public. It's another reason just annoy the whole topic just annoys me. But Sargon has to keep face for his subscribers. He has arrived at a liberal position. He has to maintain it now. He is financially invested in maintaining the status quo which exists on his channel. That's kind of all there is to say about it. But it doesn't matter anyway. Common Filth is a product of 4chan/8chan. I talked to him, he's from there. Aren't we all? He isn't. Anyway, Common Filth is the fucking worst image board girl I've ever seen. What do you think of Iron March and esoteric Hitlerism? Not a lot. Um,
Yeah, Iron March itself isn't that bad. There are a few sort of traditionalist types on there.
yeah, I'm not aware. I'm not involved with these things. I'm not really aware of them. So
Yeah, there were certainly they were cut above the usual sort of street fascists.
hmm. Common filth would tell you that you need to find Jesus. He needs to fucking find Jesus. Good heavens. Common filth needs to find Christ within himself. The how chaotic and imbalanced that man is, it does not speak of a Christian at peace. It does not have the image of the ascetic. So before Common Filth starts ranting at other people, he should rant to himself. I think all this, what he's doing, is kind of an extended alchemical exercise where he was going on a certain path where it should have ended, but he's missed that and carried on doing it. Any other sensible person doing what he would have done would have stopped a long time ago and kind of realized, I need not do this. I need to do something else. But he hasn't done that. So right. I reckon we'll cut things off there. It's 1:30. So thank you for joining me, Jack, and we'll see you guys next time, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me on.